Samanthaazira here. I recently played all the way through the Quarry, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit, some of the things I liked, some of the things I don't like. I would consider this, and this is going to be a spoiler for my opinion on the game, a little mediocre, but I want to explain myself, so stay tuned. One of my first complaints about the game is the quick time events. They're so freaking easy. You only have to push like up to the side. I mean, it's really hard to not get it right. And although my complaint is not solely with that, I think that it removed some of the tension from the game. So because they made the quick time events so easy, you basically felt like you weren't going to lose anything by, getting it wrong, because it was almost impossible to get it wrong. The mouths are really weird, and it reminds me of an old clip from one of those funny YouTube college humor type things.
So, Jerry, how is my favorite producer?
Your favorite producer or your only producer?
The intermissions in this game I did enjoy a lot more than Until Dawn. And Until Dawn, you're talking to this counselor dude, and I felt like for the most part what I was telling him didn't really change much of anything. And although that's still true with the fortune teller lady, I liked her character a lot more. She was a lot more entertaining. I was always excited when I got to see her again. But that being said, the tarot card readings, I felt like whatever she would show me in her orb wouldn't actually make a difference in what happened. I felt like she barely showed me anything. So I felt like it didn't make much of a difference. Due to my own personal fears, as a kid I grew up watching the American Werewolf series. I would have been a lot more terrified if the werewolves were a little bit more traditional instead of this mix of kind of Until Dawn's creature meets, I guess, werewolf. And so this whole exploding skin blood thing, I mean, although it was pretty cool and unique, I think I personally would have been a lot more terrified if they would have done something more wolf-like with the fur and the eyes and the transformations being a little bit slower than just that immediate exploding body thing that they had going on. I think that would have been a little bit more creepy, but that is more personal to me. This game did feel quite formulaic in terms of matching Until Dawn, in terms of the two people at the beginning getting in trouble, the teenagers being out in the middle of nowhere in the woods or in the Until Dawn, the mountains, and it felt very parallel. And that didn't bother me a lot, and it was pretty cool because the two people at the beginning of the game didn't actually end up dying. Now they still can die depending on the choices you make, but it did feel very formulaic, and it like I said, it didn't bother me, but it was definitely noticeable. I would say for this game in particular, overall, I would recommend a playthrough if you like games that are very story-based, not so much gameplay heavy. I personally wouldn't spend more than 30, that's kind of pushing it, $25 on this game. I think there is some replay value, and there are some additional features where you can do a movie mode or a rewind mode. But personally, I would not spend probably more than $25, $30 tops on this game. And that's only if you like the movie sim storytelling games. Back to the really easy QuickTime events, if they designed it this way so that it would be more accessible to other players because they wanted it to be more about the story versus the gameplay, I would argue that if that's something they wanted to do, then maybe they should have considered difficulty modes, easy mode being the directions where it's up, side, down, or whatever. And then for people who wanted the more traditional gameplay, maybe go back to you have to hit square, triangle, or whatever. I personally think I'm pretty good at QuickTime events, more specifically to the PlayStation controller, mainly thanks to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas because of the dance club, but that's besides the point. I wish they would have given us the option ourselves to choose whether we wanted a more casual playthrough versus something that might have been a little bit more challenging, because with the QuickTime events where it's more challenging, there's more on the line. You could mess up and lose your character because you missed the wrong input, and that really got taken away from us when we didn't ask for it. I would argue that the story is pretty slow throughout the majority of it, and it's not really till the end that things start really picking up and the action's happening, but the buildup is so long to the end of the story where all of this is happening within like a couple of chapters that you almost felt robbed. You got all this buildup of all this development and all this story for it to just kind of end somewhat abruptly. I mean, the very, very, very end of the game where Silas is there and you hit him with the car and he's like whimpering and he's just sitting there. I personally made the really stupid decision to not shoot him because I thought that there was going to be something. I thought there was going to be something more. But instead we just all got our heads ripped off and that's the end of the story. So like, whatever. But I wish that there was more thought in the end of the game. I mean, because at the end of the game, you either shoot him or you don't. And either he dies or you do. And that's it. That's the end of it. There really wasn't much else. And I wish that they would have put some sort of option in there that if you were sympathetic towards Silas, the very first wolf, that maybe there was more to the story. Maybe the Hackett family was actually doing something more and they deserved everything that came to them. Or, I don't know, something else, something more. But it felt so abrupt and not satisfactory. I was a little disappointed. When it comes to scary games, I'm not that person. I don't like playing scary games, and I can for sure say this game is not scary. Like, at all. They kind of had this missed opportunity where at the very beginning of the game, the ghost is like talking to you in your ear and you like freak out, and that was like the only time in the game that I felt a little bit freaked out. And I think if they would have played a little bit more on the ghost, Silas's mom throughout the game, maybe giving it a little bit more of that like creep factor, a little bit more of that like haunted factor, I think that really would have helped the game out a lot. Because in Until Dawn, there was kind of two stories happening at the same time, and they could have achieved that with the whole ghost werewolf dynamic. And I think if they would have done that, I think this game would have been received a lot better. Two of the characters I enjoyed a lot was Brenda Song. I can't say in particular because, I mean, her character was pretty much the same throughout. She never really broke who she was as a character, but I enjoyed seeing her a lot. I liked her voice acting a lot. And then in terms of Laura's character development, I think that was my favorite, to see the progression from, the car to the accident to being imprisoned to becoming a werewolf herself. Like, it was a very cool, like, dynamic watching her kind of grow as a character, and I'm glad I got to see that. It just sucks that I killed her at the end. One of the moments in the game that I felt was complete and utter bullshit is Max is cured, and they immediately give you don't get to play as him for like a freaking second before they're like, okay, do you want to stay on the island or do you want to go swim? And I chose to swim because I was like, well, I want to go meet the others, and I fucking died. That was it. His whole character arc, everything she did to save him, and he fucking died because I wanted to swim to the island. That was bullshit. I know I keep comparing it to Until Dawn, but so did everyone else, so give me a break. The character development, or more so making me care about the characters and their growth and being invested in them, was so much more in Until Dawn. I can honestly say in the Quarry that there were very few characters that I cared about at all. When I would lose them, I didn't really feel much of anything. Whereas in Until Dawn, it was really important to me for very particular characters to keep them alive. That'd be like Sam and Mike. Like, I was really invested in keeping them alive. Whereas in the Quarry, I really didn't feel that same connection with hardly any of the characters. Like I said, I liked Brenda's song, but that might just be like more of a nostalgia thing. And with Laura, it was her story arc was interesting to me, but it didn't make me invested in her. So I don't know what particularly was missing this time for me. I don't know why I cared more about the characters in Until Dawn versus the Quarry. If you guys felt this way, maybe you can tell me in the comments down below. What am I missing here? What was the missing piece that made me feel this way? I'm unsure. The ending of Until Dawn, you get to see like what I would assume is like police interviews following the events of the story, where at the end of the Quarry, you get to listen to a podcast. And I listened to it for a while. I personally found it boring. I wish they would have chosen a different way to end it. Maybe seeing what happens with the cop after, I mean, in my case, most of his family got like fucking murdered, so there's that. But I wish I would have seen kind of maybe the people who survived, like what they chose to do. And maybe I didn't listen to the podcast enough, but I would rather see it than hear it. I don't want to listen to a podcast. I want to see them go try to return back to their regular lives or something else other than the podcast. One of the things that was kind of confusing through the game is if the Hackett family was really trying to save people from this curse that has been inflicted on them. Why was everyone not in cages? Why did Mr. Hackett just not insist on them getting in the car and removing them from the area? Why not call his brother and have him transport people out? Like, if they really cared about finding the cure and keeping people safe, they sure had a funny way of showing it. And I think that was a missed part in this game as well, as I think delving more into this family's story and what their motivations are, and maybe just a little bit more about how they're also in the wrong, I think that would have contributed a little bit more to the story as well. I don't think the visions, like I said earlier, really helped me at all. I felt zero gratification getting the cards other than getting to interact with the lady. But whenever she would show me something in her orb, it literally never changed any of my decisions. The other thing I didn't like was the gun mechanic. And Until Dawn, you get a little like crosshairs to like show you where you're pointing at, where this one is just a light. And so that actually cost me one of my characters because, well, first of all, it was a really fast movement, but second of all, like, I was pointing it, but all you see is a light. Like, you don't actually know where you're pointing. Now, I got better at this mechanic later on, but I wish they would have given you something else to indicate where you're pointing at. I also thought that the tutorials, like the little mini cartoons, those were pretty adorable. I thought that added a lot of character. It's kind of like that camp vibe, like, here, watch this video before we do camp activity type things, and I thought that was really cute and creative as well. So those are my thoughts of the Quarry. I know I was comparing it a lot to the Until Dawn, but Until Dawn's kind of like this marker now where I want everything to match it or be better. But I would say overall, it was a decent game. I enjoyed my time with it. I'm not sure if it's something I want to replay in the future. It might take a couple years before I'm interested in playing it again. Like I said, if you can get it for on the cheaper end, $25 or less, I would say go ahead and play it, especially if you like interactive, like movie games. And don't forget, there's a spooky world waiting out there for you.